You're on the road beyond. Welcome. Todd Duplantis here. We're live from the HCC TV studios this afternoon. Good to have you with us. We try to be live every Monday.
Yes.
We go into it.
Life gets in the way.
Life gets in the way.
Yes.
I mean, you've had COVID.
Yes.
I got COVID a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
Yep. And then I went on vacation.
Then I went on vacation.
Then you went on vacation.
Right.
Yeah. I tried to fill in because I did a show without you last
And how
week.
did you do okay?
Well, I mean, people were asking. We had more viewer mail than we usually get. It's hard to get viewer mail these days, especially since they don't know the address to write.
Was it good or bad? I mean,
well, they were just wondering, did you lose another co-host?
I
you're
see.
like number 5.
No. If I've known you for 30 years, I'm not going anywhere now.
Yeah. So he's here to stay. No problem with that. But we did have some interesting vacations, though.
Yes, we were in the same area because
right.
you went up to the Northeast and then on to Quebec.
Well, you always like to copy what I do.
Yes,
we get married, divorced. I'll get a girlfriend.
Right.
Yeah.
But I used to live up in that area, so I took a trip back up there, and it was beautiful. We wanted to see the leaves change, but it didn't work out. The weather has been a little funky.
Well, we went up there back at the beginning of October. Yeah, okay, so there's some of the leaves changing right there, but you did get a good shot there.
Thank you, yeah.
Or did you Photoshop them?
No, that's legit. Now, I got on my hands and knees to get
people
that
at home are wondering, where the hell did they actually go? Okay, I was in Boston, you went to Boston.
Yes.
And then you went to Salem.
Yes, I did, on Halloween for the Salem witch trials.
Well, you sent in a couple of pictures. I got a few of them here. A graveyard shot.
That is actually where the Salem witches were buried. And it was just a great backdrop with the house behind it. But in front of that is the actual house where the trials took place. Okay, so some of the witches are buried there.
Some of them are buried there.
Witches,
okay,
yes.
All right. I'm glad we got that straight.
Yeah,
but it didn't. I didn't see anything funky in there. Did you look through your?
No, I looked through everything. I'm trying to figure out the only way I can describe how Salem is during Halloween is if you take rodeo, like all 21 days of rodeo, and put it into one night.
That's it.
But in a town about the size of Conroe.
Oh, okay.
So
you don't have a lot of space to work in.
I would imagine ghosts were scared that night because there were so many people. There was no method to the madness.
Right.
Everybody's running around in costumes.
And you got into a little trouble while you were there, I noticed.
Yeah, I got locked up.
Stocks, right?
We got pictures of me getting locked up in the stockade. And that was a lot of fun. There I am.
That's always an interesting experience. They had one of those in Williamsburg, which I tried out once, but I was always worried that I wouldn't be able to get it.
Well, I made sure to look to see if there were locks on it, and I actually let Jacqueline go in first.
Okay.
So,
well, good. Yeah, put the girlfriend
in there. Get in and out. Right. I'm not an idiot. So I made sure that I could get out of it, but it was a lot of fun, and it was a madness. It's kind of like I've been to the Thanksgiving Day parade in New York. Yeah. And did it once, and we'll never do it again.
That's all you need.
And Salem was that same thing.
Speaking of New York, you traveled down to New York from Boston. We say down because, the first time I went to Boston, I didn't know it was north of New York.
Oh, really? Yeah. So we were in Boston, then we went up to New Hampshire and Vermont.
Oh, yeah.
And a place up there called Quechee Gorge. Okay. And it's a beautiful waterfall and a beautiful restaurant right there.
Right.
Then spent a couple of days there. Then we drove down through Boston, Providence, and into New York, and then spent the last week in New York.
Incredible picture of I would say Golden Gate, but this is Brooklyn Bridge.
Yeah.
Beautiful at night there.
It's gorgeous, and there's so much, you really can't fit it into one shot. But there's a beautiful little park. You can actually walk across the bridge, but there's a beautiful park down on the water side. They did a great job of refurbishing that area, much like what we did to Memorial and Buffalo Bayou, right? It's
always copy
much like that. Yeah. But it's a gorgeous place if you ever get a chance to go there. New York is just very special. Not only did we see the sights, but saw a homeless guy sleeping in the street on 42nd Street, which is a very busy street. And also, I started to get you the souvenir, but I didn't want to pick it up, a used needle.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because you don't see enough of those.
No.
Here in Houston, we're kind of deprived.
That's part of the charm of New York.
Anything paranormal happened?
Nothing. I was so disappointed. We actually stayed in an old inn when we were in New Hampshire, and nothing happened.
Wow, that's boring.
Stephen was checking. There was one time a drawer was open. Jacqueline was getting ready, and I said, "Did you open that drawer?" Thinking maybe.
Yeah.
But she said she did.
Oh,
so I was very disappointed.
Nothing happened there. But, I went to Quebec City about a month ago. go. And we went to Boston first and then drove up to Quebec City, stayed in Vermont one night in between. But I brought some cool pictures from the ghost tours of old Quebec. Now, I'm going to get these guys on the show. They got some interesting stories. You see all the old cobblestone streets. Quebec City is like the French Quarter on steroids.
Yes.
That's the way I look at it, but without all the drunken Americans, you know. But the very close quarters is they take you down these old alleyways here, and our tour guide, he's kind of cool looking. He's got a top hat, and he carries a lantern as he tells his story. Well, one of the stories he told of was about this doctor back in, I think, the 1700s who decided he was just going to forego, you know, showing his students, sketches or things like that.
Right.
So he decided what he was going to do is go dig up the fresh graves.
Nice.
And get people and just do the experiments. But he had to do it in his home. And then he started getting all the students to come live with him in the home. And in the basement of the home, he even created a cafeteria for them.
Okay.
Because he had so many students living.
There are so many levels of creepy. It's
kind of creepy, yeah.
I'm thinking about who's the guy that had to dig up the bodies. Like, how do you get that guy to do it?
Well, they got students, or these guys like from the old Newhart's show, Larry, Daryl.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Daryl. Yeah, he does do anything for a buck. There were a lot of those guys back in the 1700s.
Well, they're still around now, so
you either eat or dig up a body. They would do that. So they take these bodies and they would do these crazy experiments on them, you know, just for the sake of medicine.
Right.
One of the things they did is they told a story about how a student went down in the middle of the night to get something to eat in the kitchen. Goes down there and he sees a woman, but it's the back of the woman. And she is sitting in front of a fireplace. And so he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" The woman just going back and forth, doesn't pay attention to him. So he goes over and he gets his food and he goes and he sits down and he's like, "I'm going to go, it's kind of cold. I'm going to go sit by the fire." So he's like, "Do you mind if I sit here?" She just ignores him. And he's like, hello, ma'am. And he goes to touch her and his hand goes directly to her. She turns around, looks at him. She's got no face.
Okay.
It was one of the experiments they were doing, taking off her face.
No way.
Now, that's the story he tells. Then he tells the people in the audience, who is me and my girlfriend, and several others, it's been known that people will take home spirits with them after these tours. So be careful, because you may have a spirit attached to you. Well, of course, the girlfriend believes in this, and of course, I do the show. So anyway, so we go home that night, go to sleep. Next morning, we're up and about, and she comes with me with this, we have to talk, you know. Can I tell you something?
And by the way, the best words you ever hear in a relationship, we need to talk.
Or can I tell you something?
Right.
And I'm like, oh boy, where's this going to go? She said, well, last night, I think I told you this before. Last night, I was trying to sleep and I kept hearing people in the Airbnb walking around in the den. I could literally hear them walking around in the den. And I'm like, well, that's awfully weird considering we're the only ones there. And then she said, I kept feeling somebody choking me while I was sleeping. I couldn't breathe. And in my dreams, I was seeing this woman with no face.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if the story manifested in her imagination, but, once again,
we got to get those guys on.
Yeah.
Because
they are going to be on the show. I talked to them about it that night.
That's just bizarre.
Yeah.
But I mean, I appreciate what he was trying to do in trying to better medicine, but it's a little far.
A little funky, yeah. But back then it was kind of sketchy. It wasn't really but it
wasn't a lot of oversight.
It wasn't
things during that time.
But old Quebec City definitely worth the visit if you get a chance. It's about 6-hour drive from Boston. That's what.
Yeah, it's actually not that far when you really think about it.
When you get to Vermont, you're right at the border.
Yep.
And it's weird because you cross the border and they all speak French.
Yeah. Especially,
hey, you guys know we're speaking English over there,
on the eastern side. Yeah, it is predominantly
right in that
French.
area. Yeah, predominantly.
I did see, I wanted to add, I did see there was a graveyard in Boston called, I believe it's Cops Hill Burying Ground.
Yeah.
There is there are a lot of Tea Party participants buried there, but there's actually one grave that you can see on the back of it. He was part of the Tea Party, I believe, but the English, after they took over, decided to use his grave for target practice, and you can still see the holes
from the
musket balls on the back of the tombstone.
Yeah, so, Boston has some incredible cemeteries there.
Yes.
In fact, Mother Goose. Didn't know Mother Goose was a real person.
Right.
Like, always was a pseudonym, but Mother Goose buried there.
Yeah. And Boston, be prepared, because Boston it looks like everyone got drunk on Sam Adams beer.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then they
yeah, it
designed the
does.
streets.
Yes, right.
Because it makes no sense whatsoever. We have more of a grid system here. New York has a grid system.
Yeah, it's all over.
Boston's a free-for-all.
They're like, it's only 2 miles away. And I'm like, oh, that wouldn't take that long. It's about a half-hour drive. You think it's bad in Houston? Yeah, go to Boston.
It's crazy.
Okay, we've been talking ghosts. And our next segment, I've been talking about bringing in a ghost expert.
Yes.
Eddy Specter from the Ghost Tours of Galveston. Galveston Ghost Tours is going to be joining us just in a few minutes. He's got some interesting stories. So if it's okay with you, we'll take a break. Before we go to break, tell them where they can find us in social media.
You can just find us by typing in the Road Beyond Podcast.
That's right, the Road Beyond Podcast. Okay, short break. Ghosts and more of Galveston on the way. Back in 60 seconds.
When I grow up, I want to work in a lab to build robots.
From classroom to career, we're with you every step. Register for real-world education at hccs.edu.
Things could be stranger, but I don't know how. I'm going through changes now. Could spend a lifetime trying to figure it out. I'm going through changes, through all of the strangeness. I'm going through changes now.
Where's your emergency?
Welcome back to the Road Beyond Podcast. Todd Duplantis here. You know this guy. Doug O'Brien from you're still with the Houston Eagle, right?
Yeah, still with the Eagle. I'll be going there after this.
And you're on the afternoons primarily? Or?
Actually, well, I fill in and do weekends, but I do production and imaging. Right. So all the stuff.
And a lot of social media too.
Yeah, I do social media every afternoon with Scott. And then, but anything you hear on the station that's not music or commercial, I'm responsible.
Oh, well, there you go. So a little bit of trivia we've given you. When you call in to Doug, make sure you mention the Road Beyond Podcast.
Yes, please.
When you do that. I know with your job, you go down to Galveston a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah. As a matter of fact, we were just down there for the Lone Star Rally.
Bike rally. Yeah. Give away that motorcycle?
We gave away a motorcycle as a nice woman won it. And
very cool.
I tried to rig it for me to get it, but didn't work out. But yeah, so we're down there all the time.
Well, you ever go to Galveston and say, hey, I want to go find some ghosts?
I have heard so many stories about Galveston being haunted, especially brothels. Yeah. I've heard because there used to be a bunch of them down there with the whole gambling scene that was down there back in the 1800s and then all the disasters that have happened. Right. So I've never experienced it in Galveston, but I'm very, very curious.
Eddy Specter is joining us, and he's been on our show a couple of times, been on our morning show here at HCC TV. Good to have you with us, Eddy. Good to have you with us this afternoon.
Very, very nice to be here, you guys. Todd and Doug, thank you so much for having me. And first of all, happy Veterans Day to everybody. And also a big plus to my father, Paul, who did 2 tours in Vietnam. And luckily, he's still with us. But there you go.
Well, we thank him and all veterans for their service today. And really, and every day, because we wouldn't have the country we live in without our veterans. Eddy, want to ask you a couple of questions. You've been doing is it Ghost Tours of Galveston or Galveston Ghost Tours?
Ghost Tours of Galveston County.
Okay, Ghost Tours of Galveston County. Have you seen a ghost personally or something weird that you could not explain during your tours?
Friends, I'm about to tell you something crazy. No.
That's what I was wondering. Yeah, a lot of people search.
Well, me personally, okay, I've been involved with the paranormal all my life. I mean, when I was a kid, if we lived in a haunted house, my mom was the psychic side, and she would say, so-and-so hung himself on the stairs, and I saw his ghost over there, but don't worry about it. It's fine. So she kind of prepared me for this.
Yeah.
But really seeing, I haven't seen things, but why is that? Why would that stop me? I've had people who come up to me and say specifically, I don't believe in ghosts, but I saw one walk down the stairs over there.
Yeah, that'll change you.
Man, it upsets me. I'm like, you got to see one?
Is it possible that with so many people that the a one-on-one or one-on-two experience? Do you think?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the intentions are. As far as my aspect, I know that they follow me around, and I have to regulate that. Especially being married, the wife doesn't want me to bring. Yeah, she doesn't want anything home, and so I say, okay, we got to keep this in Galveston. Whatever happens in Galveston stays in Galveston.
Right.
Well, Eddie, Galveston's has a lot of history, known for several things. We want to discuss a few of them with you this afternoon. Now, for a time in the early 1800s, the coastal areas of Galveston really had a bunch of pirates there. The most famous one, Jean Lafitte. Of course, known for the War of 1812, teaming up with Andrew Jackson, really to lay a decisive blow to England at that time to keep them from trying to take us over anymore. But he did base himself in Galveston for quite some time. And I know he had there was a memorial there for him, but there's also the ruins of his Pirates Mansion. Of course, he ordered it burned when he left the island. Have you taken people out there? What do you know about that?
Oh, it's very interesting. and wonderful little piece of trivia that, yes, he was almost a privateer. He worked with, the authorities and stuff, as long as it helped him out. We have been through the ruins over there, right there. And you could just feel it. You could definitely feel it. Leave the gate open a little bit. So it's like, oh, do they... are we allowed? Well, the gate's open. This fence is messed up. I guess we could just walk through. And it's pretty prominent there. So I would expect everybody could just walk through there. But that was a great spot there on Harbor Side, on the north side of Galveston. But there was another spot, the Stewart's Mansion. Remember, do you know about that? That's on the south side of Galveston. Yeah, and what was cool is that he had both places. So he could see, anything coming from both sides, south or north. And Stewart's Mansion is where I believe he have slaughtered some of the Gronqua Native Americans there. And I've been there, and it was it's a beautiful Spanish mansion, but it was dilapidated. Some graffiti, some people were doing some altars and rituals and things like that.
Yeah, that's scarier than ghosts for me.
Yeah, I don't want to go there. I'm not worried about the ghosts. I'm worried about the people I'm going to be running into.
Exactly. But no, Jean Lafitte, he was pretty famous. And he kind of just took off, and nobody knows what happened to him, right?
That's they kind of ran them out. They had about a 20-year period, from what I understand, 1800 to around 1820. Then he kind of just disappeared. Now, not long after that, Galveston, of course, was drawn into the Civil War, and the Confederates were using Galveston as more a stocking point,
right?
To restock their forces. Yep. In 1862, the late summer, the Union forces sent down the U.S. Army to take over the port, because they're like, we're going to blockade this. They brought down 6 ships, about 1,000 troops, but the Confederates attacked on New Year's Eve, 1862, and then in 1863 on New Year's Day, they were able to win the battle with 2 ships and around, several hundred troops. But what happened afterwards, they took a lot of prisoners. And I know, Eddie, a lot of those prisoners didn't survive. And a lot of the stories and a lot of the hauntings from the Civil War era is still active in that area today.
Oh, absolutely. And going back to that was a very, very interesting and an entertaining, elaborate battle that General John Bankhead Magruder did to take back Galveston from the Union forces. I mean, he was a very tall, flamboyant man and sung tenor, and he used those artist skills to make his ships look bigger and stuff like that to win that battle. It was amazing. But the aftermath, and he's buried in the cemetery there in Galveston. The aftermath, I've seen so many things. I mean, battles took place all over. I mean, specifically one story, I have is over there on 20th and Strand, over by the old trolley station market. There was a battle that took place there, and right across the street was the Civil War headquarters. Battle took place right there, and two soldiers came back to back with one another. And they turned around, noticed they were wearing different uniforms, and shot each other immediately. And then they looked up at their faces and realized they made a horrible mistake, that they were father and son.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't uncommon for families to fight against each other during the Civil War. Well, you know, there was an infirmary hospital right there. That's where they took the father, who later died. That's a very, very haunted spot. I mean, a lot of weird energy there, a lot of stories there.
Yeah, we did an investigation when the first incarnation of the show back around 2004, when it was a television show. It was LaCroix Bistro was the name of the place, and we did some digging around, and apparently that was one of the infirmaries. And one of the psychics had a experience where she saw a man going crazy and with guards around him dressed in Civil War gear, and it brought her back to that. And then we later found that it was an infirmary. In fact, we've got about 4 minutes left in our segment, but I wanted to touch on the Galveston hurricane, because in 1900, and I believe it was March the 7th, September the 8th, 1900, people were waking up to just some rain. They're used to that in Galveston, but then a torrential storm came through, and I mean, 2,600 houses were lost, but almost 8,000 lives in just a span of 24 hours.
Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? There's so much we could talk about right here. But yeah, they heard that the storm was headed their way, but then it made a right turn at the Florida Peninsula. So nobody was really worried. Kids were playing in the high waters with a northern wind, which is very strange.
Yeah.
But people started freaking out, and it was just too late. I mean, they tried to get over to inland, and the railroad was destroyed. So all they could do was go to higher ground and hope for the best. I saw one psychic say something recently. She said, right before we are born, we choose our lives. We decide where we're going to go. And she said this specifically about the Great Storm. Over 6,000, 8,000 people collectively decided they were going to die on that day. And I was curious, why? Is there some kind of supernatural element to where those spirits had to be there at that certain time for some reason that we have no idea about? And it was just something I needed to bring up. I think it's very enticing.
It's incredible what happened to them.
We also have to mention that many slaves came into Galveston.
Absolutely.
And not all of them made it. So just the number of deaths, when you talk about the size of Galveston Island,
right?
The number of deaths that have happened through the pirating, the Civil War, the slave trade, and just a natural disaster is really astounding. But the question I have for you, if someone, and I'm not at all suggesting this, but if somebody wanted to contact a ghost or bring a spirit forward, what would they do? What would you recommend they do? What first steps should they take to kind of follow in your footsteps?
Okay, well, first of all, the one thing you always need to remember is that you're in total control. And if you feel like you're out of control and you have something bothering you, that's when you seek help and you call us or whatnot. But it's just I want to see, I want to feel. And that's how I have to regulate myself when I'm around that area. If we're doing an investigation, I only allot a certain amount of time for spirits to flow through, give me visions, talk, anything like that, and then I cut it off. So it's basically just control of it. Say, I'm accepting, and the best thing is positivity. Is there anything you need? And if you're religious, say, please protect me through this conversation. I mean, they are there.
Absolutely.
It's as simple as asking.
Eddy, where can people contact you if they want to take your tour?
Well, just go to eddyspecter.com. You can find me on Facebook, all the social networks, on TikTok. I got some business from TikTok. How about that?
Well, we'll be putting your link in our social media post after the show. Eddy, thanks for joining us. I want to get you back on again. We only touched the tip of the iceberg here. So have a good one, and we'll get to some other stories in the future.
All right, much love. Take care.
Thanks, Eddy. Same to you.
All right, we're running out of time. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with one short video.
When I grow up, I want to work in a hospital.
From classroom to career, we're with you every step. Register for real-world education at hccs.edu.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
You know, we've been showing bear videos since you started the show.
It's a running theme for some reason. I don't know why. But
here's the latest one. Take a look at these hikers. Catch a bear while they're out, and you're going to see that he just starts sniffing him. But look how calm the hiker is.
literally, the bear walked up to this lady,
Starts sniffing.
fascinated
Yeah.
with her for some reason,
Yeah.
and not the other one,
Yeah,
and starts sniffing her, gave her a little bit of a bear hug.
yeah. And that was the end of it.
Yeah.
Just walked right off, going about his day.
It's the weirdest thing. What I'm surprised by, how did that lady stay so calm?
Because I would have been running away.
Oh, the question wouldn't have been, does a bear go to the bathroom in the woods? It would have been, does Doug
Go to the bathroom in front of the bear.
Right then.
And with that, we're going to wrap up today's show. Road Beyond Podcast. Look for us in social media.